Is that 95? Uh, uh. That is wild. Where on 75? It says, holy cow. Sorry, everybody. Sorry. Um, yeah, friggin', I was just watching, I was trying to show you, it literally just stopped downpouring just a few minutes ago. Um, and, anybody on the west coast of Florida, from, what was it? Basically, Pinellas County south, Marco Island, from Marco Island up to Pinellas, and even probably a little bit further, like Cape Coral, all those places. Right now is the time you need to leave, because I am not joking. The wife was saying, "Hey babe, check this out," and I'm looking, and I-75 is almost gridlocked. If you live anywhere near a body of water, because you have to understand, I'm not a meteorologist, I'm not any of that. If you want to see any of that, go to NOAA, go to anyone other. I'm not saying I'm not. I've lived here for over 35 years. I've dealt with hurricanes. I've been flooded out in a hurricane. And what's about to happen? This hurricane is at a Cat 5 right now. This storm is at a Cat 5. Hit that like button right now. Let's get this up there so that we can share this information, because anybody on the West Coast that watches this channel or has family on the West Coast, they need to leave somewhere off the West Coast. Get further inland off the beaches, get further inland away from water, because this is going to be like, you thought the first Helene was bad. This one's going to get a lot worse. This one's going to get a lot worse. And everybody's leaving. I've got eyes on the state. He's over on the West Coast. He sent me an email saying there's already 3 gas stations he's been to that are basically almost out of gas. So right now, if you need to either fill up and hunker down, or fill up and leave. Because right now, and the only thing I could say is go more inland, but even going inland, there's going to be flooding. And then you're also going to have to deal with, hotel accommodations, or, me personally, I'd sleep in my car at this point. I just find a high ground and be like, all right, man, I hope I make it through the night. You're not allowed to open carry during this, but I did hear about the open carry lawsuit with Florida Carry and all that. Yes, I did. We'll talk about that later. But right now, what I want you to do is hit that thumbs up. Let's get the algorithm up there so that we can spread this message, because the west coast of Florida, I'm not a meteorologist. I'm not telling you where it's going to land, but I can tell you right now, it's going to affect me as well. And it's going to affect my parents. It's going to affect the majority of almost Central Florida. It doesn't matter where you are in Central Florida, you are going to feel this. Whether it's wind, rain, storm surge. That's why I'm saying, for the people that are on the coastlines, you need to leave now. This storm is at a Cat 5, and it's about to get into the Gulf Coast. In every storm that I've ever seen, and just like Helene started out really small, but once she got up into the friggin' Gulf, she blew up really quick. This storm is just at the bottom end, and we're hoping that it clips the one part of a mountain that would cause some disturbance to kind of weaken it, hopefully. And once again, this is only because I deal with hurricanes on the East Coast. And usually what happens when they come through the East Coast, if they hit like the Bahamas or any one of the islands that are in between us and Florida, it always weakens. But we also have a trough just like they do on the West Coast. And that trough is actually in between from where the Bahamas sit like this, and then you've got Miami, the Keys down here. I wish I had a screen to put it up, but you have to understand the Bahamas are like this. You know, they're about 65 miles offshore. I've seen storms come up straight up the coast, go right in between us and Florida and the Bahamas, and those were some of the worst storms I've ever seen. And that's what's happening with Helene, and now, you know, this one as well. This is something not to play with, because this storm, you know, it is 3:45 East or 3:40 Eastern Standard Time. At 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, there should be another update. I promise you, by the 11 o'clock update, if you haven't left, make sure you have food. Go out, get water. Go out and do whatever you can to make sure you protect your home. If you're going to stay and hunker down through these storms, make sure you have enough make sure you have some canned goods, because this one is not going to be like Helene. Especially once it starts spinning back up and it gets out into the warmer waters of the Gulf. This is not going to be an okay storm. Some of the worst storms, I can tell you about a storm. There was actually 4 storms. 2 came from the West Coast that went across from the East Coast to the West Coast. And then there were 2 from the West Coast that went to the East Coast. And this happened all within like a 2-month span. And most people, if you know about Port St. Lucie and here in Brevard County, you know what I'm talking about. There were 4 named storms, and it happened one after the next. It was like, oh, you get a week break or a week and a half break, and just when you thought you got it all cleaned up, another storm came in and wiped everything friggin' back out. So right now, if you have people, family, anybody on the west coast of Florida, let them know, either get provisions, get ready to hunker down, because the storm surge that they're talking about is almost over 10 to 15 feet, and it's probably going to increase once we see the 11 o'clock or at probably about 11 a.m. This storm is nothing to play with right now, you know. And the only reason I'm not leaving is because I live on the East Coast, and even for me, I got my generator. My generator's out in my van. I got a freezer full of food. I got, I don't know, 160 bottles of water. I got snacks. I got bread. I've got peanut butter and jelly. I've got anything that's going to help protect you. I can only do what I can do for myself. If I could, at this point, I'm not leaving. I'm not going anywhere. I'm staying right here. I have no intentions on going anywhere, because I don't know where this thing's going to go. I have no clue. The only thing I could hope, and I wouldn't hope for it for anybody, is to make a complete U-turn and go somewhere completely different than Florida right now. Because the west coast of Florida just took one a week ago. 1 week ago, we had Helene. And I know from my thank you very much, Sevenfold 777. But I know from inside sources on the West Coast, my inside sources, they say a lot of the plumbing and a lot of the piping, they're already full of sand, and they haven't had time to really get it all cleared out. So that's just going to create more flooding. So all these businesses, all these homes, all these things on the west coast of Florida right now are going to be in a world of hurt. And I don't wish it on anybody, but all I'm saying is be prepared. If you're going to stay, be prepared. Because, it could be one day, it could be 2 days. This storm, I think, is only moving at like 6 miles, 7 miles an hour, which means once it actually gets into the Gulf, and if it stays at 6, 7 miles an hour, it's just going to sit there and spin and just gather. And as it keeps hitting more warmer and warmer water, it's only going to get worse. It's like, this is actually a storm that's concerning because it looks so small. When you look at it on a radar, I mean, it's still pretty big. But for a category 5, I can only think about what's gonna happen as it gets into warmer water. And just like Helene started out the same way, and this is on the same not same trajectory, but it's coming to the west coast, and it's still 2 days out. This storm is going to get vicious, and if you live on the west coast, I highly suggest that you leave. If you live in like anywhere, if you've already been affected from above Pinellas County, Tampa Bay area, I would suggest leaving. If you do not leave, people might not be able to help you, and especially if you live near water, because the water is just going to come up and up and up and up, and don't, just because you might not live on the ocean, if let's say you have one of those retention ponds in your backyard, right, that retention pond, if it has 20 inches of rain come in, and you see where I'm going with this. Flooding is going to be an issue. There is going to be a lot of wind and a lot of rain. Depending on where this lands, anything, like when you see the storm and it's like, oh, the track's like this, and it's like, okay, we've got all these places here, Pinellas County. Well, everybody over here, they have to worry about tornadoes. But everybody over here on this side of it is going to deal with the wind, the rain. We're all going to deal with rain. But this side is like the heavy rain. But this side, this stirs up the tornadoes. And that's what I'm concerned about here, is that if it comes in there's 2 tracks that I've been looking at that say if it comes a little bit south, just a little bit south of Tampa, and still comes across in the same way, the tornadoes are what I'm going to be worried about. But like I said, I have a generator, I have 15 gallons of gas, I have plenty of food. I'm looking out for you, saying, hey, get this will affect the majority of Central Florida, Treasure Coast. Pretty much, it's probably going to affect pretty much everybody on the West Coast again, which isn't necessary. Fort Myers, Anna Marie Island, I believe it's called. I'm not a meteorologist. I'm not claiming to know what I'm talking about. I've seen this stuff going on for 38 years. I promise you by tomorrow, Wednesday, by 11 o'clock, you're going to see how big this thing has gotten. We're going to see what's up, Rogue? We're going to see at 5 o'clock how this thing is going. At 5 o'clock today, we're going to see what's going on. The next update, and I think they've been flying the plane, and I think the plane's actually giving the most up-to-date. I think they've been flying out there constantly, so like I said, go to NOAA and look out for those updates. But usually they have a 5 o'clock update and they have an 11 o'clock update. This storm is only going to get bigger, and it's only going to get into a bigger, broader body of water with nothing stopping it. What's up, XXGOX? There's nothing going to stop this storm until it hits landfall. And I'm hoping that it doesn't go any more north than where it's going. But, you know, I'm not the controller of wind. I just know that I want you to be safe. Get your supplies, get your water, get some canned goods, get some rice, get some charcoal. Even charcoal. I probably should go get another bag of charcoal just in case, but I know that we're not going to be as devastated. We possibly could. The West Coast is going to get a big part of this. The East Coast, yes, we are going to get some of this. It's probably going to involve flooding, a lot of rain, some wind, because the thing starts to die because anytime a storm comes over the state, it really kind of slows down, it stalls out really fast, and that's the problem, is that it's going to stall out because it's looking for something warm. It's looking for water, and it's like, all right, well, I need to keep moving. And then they haven't even projected what it's going to do after it crosses the state. They're like, oh, it's going to turn into a low, and I'm like, yeah, probably not, because it's gonna get out to our warm waters over here, get near the Gulf Stream, and then next thing you know, it could very well go up to North Carolina, and that's gonna be the last thing I want. But I've only seen these storms happen, I don't know, over the last 38 years of my life. I'm not a meteorologist. I'm just saying, I've seen this happen. I've seen it. Yeah, my stress level is friggin' going through the roof. I'm talking a mile a minute right now because I'm like, because I've got so much in my head trying to just say, hey, how do I want you to understand that this is nothing to play with. If you live near a body of water on the west coast of Florida, leave. If you live near a low-lying body of anything, if your street floods every now and again, you should think of, if you're on the west coast, I can't speak about Central Florida, I can't speak about the East Coast because that's all different. But for definitely the West Coast, you need to think about either leaving or finding just make sure you're safe. Make sure you have food and water, because the last time, they did their best to clean up the beach and open up the beach in a week. But all that work's going to go for nothing, because after this, it's not just going to be the beach, it's going to be the inland side too. The inland sides are going to feel this storm. And hopefully it does turn into a Category 3. I hope it does turn into that. And I think every 208 of you hit that thumbs up. Like I said, this storm is nothing to play with. If you have the ability to go see, if I had more room over here, if I had a big old compound, I'd invite everybody over here and I could help out, but I don't have a big compound, but I will be going live. I want to say, from what they said, the majority of what we're going to see is going to be around 8 o'clock, but I will be doing some time lapses and things of that nature, so you can see kind of how the changes happen and how the storm moves. So, but yeah, I just want everybody out there to be safe, because this is not a joke. Not a joke. This is something that they think they know, and I don't know. I'm not saying this is going to happen. I could be completely wrong. It could turn into a Category 1 by the time it hits. I could be completely wrong. But I've seen so many of these storms, the second they turn into this Gulf Stream or into the Gulf of Mexico, it's a free-for-all. And right now, these are kind of our hottest times. July, August, September, October, November. November, things start cooling down. We start getting a little cold fronts here and there. December, that's when the hurricane season actually ends. If you don't know, hurricane season ends in December. So understand our waters stay warm primarily through the whole year up until about December. And then between all the cold fronts from December, January, February, March, they start warming up around March. And then by June, we're right back into hurricane season. But June, July, we don't see too many. They pop up here and there. But understand that Florida, we have like a 4-month period where predominantly we don't have hurricanes. And right now, this is prime time. And then on top of it, if you actually look at some of the charts, look just below that's coming off right up through the gap again. There's a possible another storm right behind this one. So the west coast of Florida could possibly get 3 storms within like 3 weeks. So this is a category 5. I'm gonna get off here. I'm trying to keep it short. But this is a category 5. It could be a category 3 or 4 when it hits, but I wouldn't count on it. Because once it gets away from any kind of landmass, once it gets out into the Gulf and there's no obstructions, and there's actually a front coming from Texas that's helped keeping it on the lower half. So that's why there's a high probability it's going to be somewhere in the Tampa Bay area all the way down towards almost the Fort Myers. That's where the impact is. If it impacts somewhere in Fort Myers and keeps heading that direction, it's going to really mess up me. It's still going to mess up me. But if it goes up towards Pinellas County and affects Clearwater, Pinellas County, Tampa, Bradenton, Dunedin, Tarpon Springs, friggin' all those places, they just went through it and they're about to go through it again. So if you live anywhere near there, go to Goog Squad. Go to Goog Squad. He gave me a lot of information. I've been following this before he went, when he did his live stream or whatever. I follow these storms. I'm a YouTuber. I just sit at home and I think it's NOAA.gov, and they'll give you updates of everything going on right now. Everything, from wind speed to wind to tides to currents to everything. It'll break it all down, and it's a lot to take in. That's why I'm trying to give it to you in the layman's terms, because when I'm looking at it, I can understand it. But for the most people, they're gonna look at it and they're gonna be like, I don't know what this is. And then you depend on the news, and the news gives it good. They give you kind of a general, but you really need to pay attention to some of these governments, because on NOAA.gov, I believe it is, they literally have the plane giving models of wind speed because they're flying over this. So definitely make sure you know what's going on. Understand this is something very serious. If you live on the West Coast, anywhere from north of Pinellas and all the way down to probably basically down to Marco Island, if you're on the West Coast, be concerned, because this storm is not going to be the same storm you see in the next probably, I give it probably about 8 hours, 10 hours. 8 to 10 hours from now, it is not going to be the same storm. It's probably going to be even worse. And then they're going to give you a little better track of what's going on. So this is a very serious storm. But anyway, I'm gonna get out of here. Don't forget hit that like, share, and that subscribe button. I will be going live. I do have the capability to try, as long as I have electricity and I can, as long as I have Wi-Fi, I will be trying to do some kind of live stream with my GoPro so that you can see the outside. I'll do a live stream on the inside as well, and just so that we can talk, make sure anybody that's in trouble, that you're not in trouble. But this is something that I would suggest leaving for. So. I'll probably see you in about 10 hours from now, 10 to 12 hours. Don't forget. Soliaker. Deuces.